I messaged the Israeli ambassador and thanked him for his stand on Twitter. And I think many like me did that. But when I saw him tweeting a random troller message screenshot that somebody praised Hitler in his box, I mean, what was the point of doing that? Either he's naive or a very, very clever person. I lost all my respect for that man. They just want unconditional support from us unconditionally. Right. So what happened? Okay, so the Israeli ambassador. So we know what happened earlier this week. There was this person, Nadav Lapid, who said something extremely unfortunate. He was appointed the head of the jury of an international film festival in Goa, and he said that the Kashmir Files movie is all propaganda and so on and so forth, something very unnecessary and annoying. He said it in the presence of the Israeli ambassador and a very high-ranking Indian minister, Mr. Anurag Thakur, and so on. Then Mr. The Israeli ambassador to India went ahead and laid out a whole tweet thread in which he kind of called out the the person who made these comments, the Israeli person who made the comments. And then yesterday or the before yesterday, the Israeli ambassador goes ahead and tweets something. He says that I'm receiving various kinds of threats or abusive messages on in my Twitter DM box, direct messages, and he put one of the screenshots out there. So I'm gonna put it on the screen, but be warned that it contains abusive language. I do not usually put abusive language on this show, but I'm gonna do it make an exception because this is something that's already there in public, and I think you should know. So here's what the Israeli ambassador tweeted. Let me put that on the screen, right? Um, 1 second. Give me a second. Where are we? All right. Okay, so this is Mr. Naor Gilon. He tweeted this December 3, 8 a.m., which is yesterday, 8 a.m. in the morning. He says, I just wanted to share one of a few DMs I got in this direction. According to this person's profile, the guy has a PhD. Interesting. Yeah, sure. And even though he doesn't deserve my protection, I have decided to delete his identifying information because I'm so virtuous and so much nicer than him. And then it says something about Hitler, and Hitler was a great person. So, some nonsense like that. Yeah. We don't know who tweeted this, who sent this message to Mr. Naor Gilon. There is no identifying information. Twitter is a global platform. It could be anybody from anywhere in the world. We don't know who did this, right? And yet this the Israeli ambassador went ahead and tweeted this. So he is saying that I am receiving abusive messages on Twitter, and the implication is that Indians are tweeting this at him, or Indians are messaging him like this. Yeah. So that's the kind of thing. So let me tell you first of all what he had tweeted earlier. So this was the open letter to Nadav Lapid following the criticism of Kashmir Files, which we know about. Yes. So I had spoken about this yesterday in the Indian Interest podcast, last 24 hours before today. Yeah, before right now. And he calls out Nadav Lapid in this tweet thread, but he doesn't really make any major, he doesn't really support India's stand on Kashmir in this. He doesn't really, he doesn't refute Nadav Lapid's claim that Kashmir Files is propaganda and so on and so forth. He's saying you should have been a better guest, but I'm not claiming that what you have said is wrong, and so on. Some of the things that Mr. Naor Gilon said in this tweet thread, and then he goes ahead and tweets this. So he's trying to shame India and Indians, saying that Indians tweet this sort of stuff. So we are victims and you guys are victimizing us. That's the kind of thing he's done. So I tweeted this in response. I said that India has proudly and magnanimously rescued and sheltered helpless Jews for 2,000 years with zero anti-Semitism. India never has had any record of anti-Semitism. India is the only culture that has sheltered Jews, rescued Jews, and never ever been anti-Semitic. India is the only culture, the only civilization that has done that. Yeah, a random anonymous screenshot means nothing and certainly does not represent India. And then I say that instead of diffusing tensions, you're raising the temperature, ambassador. Very disappointing, because that's precisely what he's doing. And then I went ahead and tweeted some more. Israeli ambassador Naor Gilon's tweet is an undiplomatic, unnecessary, and uncalled for. It is a deliberate provocation, an attempt to shame India and Indians. It hints at ulterior motives and a hidden agenda. And I went. So people have been tweeting at me, so I've been responding to them. So it's possible that Israel, as the vassal state, which we know it is, It is the US's vassal state. So maybe the vassal state Israel is doing the overlord's bidding. The US is bidding. We know that the US has been forcing EU and NATO nations to act against their own national interests. We know what's happening since February. The Americans have been forcing Europe to act against their own national interests, arm twisting them, right? So it would not be surprising if the US is now arm twisting Israel into sabotaging its excellent relationship with India. It's very much possible. The Israelis have to do what the Americans tell them, especially in the field of foreign policy and geopolitics. Yes, the Israelis have no option. So yeah, it's possible. So then the last tweet is that earlier this week, Ambassador Naor Gilon called out Nadav Lapid for being a bad guest. Who's being a bad guest now? Who's being the bad guest now? Right? So that's the deal. That's what's happening. It looks like this ambassador, this person, Naor Gilon, is deliberately trying to raise tensions, raise the temperature, and create this atmosphere of hostility and being a victim, and Indians are victimizing us, that sort of thing, which is incredibly disappointing. That an ambassador would behave like this. An ambassador is a diplomat. Diplomats know how to behave in public, what things to say. Their statements are typically very diplomatic, and this is extremely unfortunate and disappointing what he has done. It is not this behavior is not the behavior of a friendly nation or a diplomat, right? So that's the situation that we are in right now. Now let's go ahead and see. I said that India has always rescued Jews, sheltered Jews, helpless Jews. Jews have a history of being helpless the past 2000 plus years. Yeah, recently they have become less helpless because they have their own nation now, which was created for them by the British and the Americans, and as US vassals they have been able to do very well. I yesterday I went ahead and said that I do have the greatest admiration and respect for what Israel as a nation has been able to achieve the past since 1947-48. Yes, I do respect what they have been able to achieve, and I do admire them for a lot of things. But the truth is that Israel is a US vassal state. Without the US's support, Israel would not have existed, would not have survived the 20th century, right? And India has never ever had a single record, a single instance of anti-Semitism. India has always sheltered Jews, the helpless Jews, right? Here's an example. This is from the Times of Israel. How the Indian Oscar Schindler took in 1,000 Polish children, Jewish children, during World War II. Yeah. Documentary Little Poland in India chronicles the selfless rescue of Jewish and Christian kids as India struggled for its own independence. So even when India was struggling with foreign occupation, with the destruction of the Indian economy and the destruction of India and wholesale plunder of India by the British, even at that time, India was rescuing and sheltering helpless Jewish and Christian children. And who did that? It was the uh, Maharaja Digvijay Singh Ji Ranjit Singh Ji Jadeja, also known as Jam Sahib, right? He did this selflessly. He said that I am your father. These kids were all orphans. Yeah, they had lost their parents during the events of the Second World War. Mostly Polish kids, some of them Christian, many of them Jewish. Yes. So the Maharaja went ahead and in a princely state in Gujarat, and he decided to adopt these children for the time being and shelter them in India and look after them as long as the war unfolded. Yeah. And even today, some of those kids still survive, and they do remember this very fondly. And many of them were Jews. Yes, Jewish refugees. So this was in 1942, and so on. You can read this article. You can go ahead and read the article. Yes. Uh, so yeah, that's one example of how India has always been kind to the Jews, magnanimous to the Jews. How India has always sheltered the Jews, and so it is extremely disappointing that this person, the ambassador of Israel to India, goes ahead and makes this unsubstantiated allegation in an attempt to shame India and to shame in the Indian people, the great Indian people who have always been kind and magnanimous to the Jewish people and to the Israelis. Extremely disappointing. It hints at ulterior motives. It looks like somebody somewhere doesn't want India and Israel to have a good relationship. And so what are the possibilities? There are multiple possibilities as to which could possibly explain the behavior of this person. One possibility is that he has gone rogue and he wants to become a social media star, and he needs attention. So one of the ways of gaining attention is to engage in such stunts. That is one possibility. Yeah. The second possibility is that he has received directions to do this from up top, from his bosses. So who are his bosses? He reports to the Prime Minister of Israel or to the Foreign Minister of Israel. I mean, he reports to the Foreign Minister of Israel. Yeah. So whoever is the Foreign Minister of Israel is a very high ranking official in Israel, and the foreign minister would not come up with a foreign policy on his or her own. It would come at the direction of the Prime Minister of Israel, who currently I would believe is more or less is Benjamin Netanyahu, which is very surprising, because Benjamin Netanyahu has a history of uh, trying to ameliorate the relationship between India and Israel. He has been a very strong proponent of a better India-Israel and stronger India-Israel relationship. So yeah, so it's very strange, very perplexing. And the third possibility is that maybe it has come from somebody higher than Benjamin Netanyahu. Maybe it's come from somewhere else, from the overlord of Israel, which is the United States. And I have spoken about this in the past. Just a month or so ago, I spoke about this. And somebody had asked me a question. I remember, you can watch this video, that is there a possibility? Now, we know that the kind of relationship India and the US have now is not very good. India has steadfastly refused to toe the American line in the Russia Ukraine conflict. India is pursuing an independent foreign policy based on its own national interest. The Americans are not happy about this. And we know that France is part of the EU, France is part of NATO. Essentially, France is a US vassal, whether they like it or not. It's the truth. And similarly, Israel is also a US vassal state. Yes. So is it possible? The question was that India and Israel relationship and the India-French relationship could change. And I believe I had said that yes, there is a strong possibility that things may not stay the same, and things may perhaps go kind of downhill to a certain extent. I had said this. And here we are, just a month later, we are seeing something like this happening. It's never happened before. India and Israel have had the warmest of relations. India and Israel have so much in common. Our national interests align. They converge to a significant extent. There is immense potential for more robust ties between India and Israel. There's immense potential for further cooperation and a strengthening of the India-Israel relationship in so many different fields: in agriculture, in technology, in IT, in space, in the military domain, in geostrategy. I spoke about these things yesterday. And despite the fact that there is so much potential for progress in India, in the India-Israel relationship, we are witnessing this sort of behavior from the Israeli ambassador. This essentially tells us that something is up. Something is up, something is fishy, and I wonder who is orchestrating all this. It doesn't make any sense for the Israelis to go ahead and sabotage their relationship with India. I would not say that the relationship has nosedived or anything, but the kind of tweet you see is not behoove. It doesn't behoove the ambassador of a friendly nation, of a nation that has a strong relationship with India. It is unbecoming of a person in that position. Yes. So yeah, this seems to hint that to the fact that things may not be completely all right. Yeah, I hope that it's just a flash in the pan, and I hope it's just a mistake by the ambassador. I hope he retracts this statement and deletes this tweet. I'm not even asking for an apology. He should just delete this tweet and move on as if nothing happened, and we will also move on as if nothing happened. But yeah, it's been 2 days. The tweet is still out there, and he's kind of unapologetic. So something is up. Something is up. So maybe I was right that the relationship between India and Israel, and the maybe some other relationship also may change in the coming days. That's where we are. So yeah, that's the deal right now, and we will keep an eye on this as we do.